With the release of the groundbreaking film Jurassic Park, ordinary inhabitants of our planet Earth were introduced to a second age of dinosaurs. Although we must note that scientists mark the beginning of this modern renaissance with the appearance of the works of American paleontologist Robert Becker in 1975, and they mark its end with the research of Gregory Paul in the year 2010. But it was only after the release of this amazing film that children fell in love with these colossal and terrifying, yet undeniably appealing lizards. It was only then that they saw them in their dreams. Adults pour through mountains of literature, hoping to learn more about these mysterious creatures. Images of dinosaurs are flaunted on cups, t-shirts, stickers, and the like. Green toy dinosaurs have become a favorite of kids everywhere. And yet, it's unlikely that anyone in real life would want to risk meeting face-to-face with one of these monsters. From the films, we know that these gargantuan beasts could smash and bash almost everything around them and tear to pieces anyone who got in their way. However, dinosaurs don't appear menacing just in movies. If, for example, when one takes a look at the 12-meter-tall Brachiosaurus skeleton at the Berlin Museum, one begins to feel a bit uncomfortable. And even the very word dinosaur in Greek means terrible, awesome, mighty, and fearfully great lizard or reptile. But were these reptiles really as frightening as is believed? Fossil remains of dinosaurs living on the Earth from 227 million to 66 million years ago during the Mesozoic era are found on all continents. From their bones, paleontologists are trying to recreate the original appearance of these amazing animals. Basically, they're enormous, awe-inspiring lizards with scaly skin, armed with huge teeth and retractable claws. Nevertheless, we will try, in spite of the scientific stereotypes, to build our own model of these prehistoric beasts. Of course, this version will be far from ideal, but with the help of comments from our dear viewers, we certainly will be able to improve on it. And who knows, perhaps in the future scientists will be able to confirm at least some of our conclusions. So let's begin our investigation. It seems that for paleontologists, these lizards are quite similar to their skeletons. Such assumptions are expressed in the book by John Conway, Mehmet Kozman, and Darren Naish called All Yesterdays. According to them, the bones were simply covered with a small layer of meat and skin. And that's all. That's it. End of story. The inhabitants of the Mesozoic are ready to be viewed. But is this right? If you try to reproduce modern animals only from their skeletal remains, they will not resemble the original at all. Let's try to prove this with the help of some skulls. What do you think? Which creature has a skull like a chimera from the depths of the Bermuda Triangle? Perhaps this is some kind of a terrifying octopus. Well, in fact, these are the remains of a harmless platypus. From this skull, which looks like it has a pair of huge pincers, according to the method of the paleontologists, this would resemble something like a hybrid of a squid and a man-eating eagle. In reality, it belongs to a fluffy, harmless rabbit. Let's take another skull. It appears reminiscent of a sci-fi space cruiser from some distant, dark galaxy. It's difficult to even imagine what kind of a monster would appear if we simply covered it with meat and skin. But we have no need to guess. It belongs to a favorite of children everywhere. It's a killer whale. The skull of an elephant with a hole in the middle for the trunk appears like the head of a giant cyclops. It's so terrifying that it might cause an entire herd of its former kinsmen to run away in fear. By the way, this is no joke. It has been observed that elephants themselves are afraid of their own kinsmen's skulls. A hippopotamus, reproduced from its bones according to accepted standards, turns out to look almost exactly like a fairy tale dragon. And a fur seal resembles something like a real mythical Cerberus guarding the entrance to the underworld. And if we humans look like our skeletons, we would appear to be something like anorexic demons. These examples lead us inexorably to the conclusion that paleontology is not so much of an exact science. the true appearance of dinosaurs could be something quite different from what we are used to envisioning. And if we so desire, using computer simulations based on their skeletons, it's actually quite easy to make dinosaurs into the sweetest and most agreeable-looking creatures on the planet, and not such scary monsters and horrors as before. Actually, paleontologists, having covered the bones of prehistoric animals according to their understanding, recognize that the results are far from ideal. As they find more remains of these ancient dinosaurs, scientists are constantly improving their understanding of these primordial reptiles. In the course of this process, many mistakes have had to be corrected. So, Apatosaurus spent almost 100 years with a stranger's head on its body, as the first skeleton discovered was found without that fairly important body part, and estimates of the size and weight of the Brachiosaur have constantly changed over time. First, it was found that it weighed 50 tons, with a height of 11 meters and was 22 meters long. Then they said it was 60 tons, with a height of 15 meters and 26 to 27 meters in length. But according to the latest research, its length is about 25 meters, it weighed 36 tons, and its height was 13 meters. British scientist William Sellers believes that many other prehistoric giants were less weighty than is commonly believed. Furthermore, until the late 70s, dinosaurs were considered sluggish and slow. But in 1964, the discovery of the remains of the predatory Deinonychus led to a scientific revolution. From the structure of the skeleton, it was possible to deduce that he ran rather quickly. From this, it followed that the dinosaur was warm-blooded. Like all warm-blooded animals, dinosaurs were immediately credited with social and parental instincts, the ability to live in a herd, hatch eggs, and then protect and carefully nurture the young. But the most shocking discovery of all was still waiting. We've known for quite some time that dinosaurs, although dominant in the Mesozoic era, are not related to our current large animals, such as elephants or hippos. But we never expected that the descendants of all these earth-stomping leviathans would be our modern birds, cheerfully twittering away in our forests and parks. At first, such a thought was prompted by the similarity of the upper extremities of the Deinonychus with a bird's wing. Then in 2005, paleontologists were finally able to isolate collagen from some soft tissues from Tyrannosaurus remains. A similar substance is also found in birds. The protective shell of the huge ankylosaurs, it turns out, has a complex microstructure of bones and collagen, similar to fiberglass or Kevlar. Despite its heavy and cumbersome appearance, this shell is surprisingly light and durable. Modern composite materials, which are used to create such things as the blades of windmills and bulletproof vests, are made based on the same principle. And the enormous Spinosaurus has a bizarre sail protruding from its back. It's assumed that it's a kind of radiator or solar cell, helping to regulate the animal's body temperature. And now this sail has been found to be made of the same bird-like collagen. There's a very funny story about Stegosaurus. Once upon a time, scientists gave this hulking Goliath a bad name. They discovered that this ancient lizard had an incredibly small brain. They also discovered some kind of cavity in the spine around its pelvis. And so they decided that it had one brain in its head and another in its derriere, so to speak. If we follow this bizarre logic, then some thoughts could come to the giant only during the process of relieving itself. However, Stegosaurus has now been fully rehabilitated. He was, of course, never famous among animals for his intelligence and ingenuity, but nevertheless, he did not need a second brain. And the cavity which gave rise to the myth, it was most likely filled with glycogen. In birds, glycogen is a source of energy. Later, paleontologists found the skeleton of one dinosaur the size of a 3-story house and weighing 1.5 tons, and surrounded by the imprints of feathers. After this, coming one after another, there were numerous discoveries that led to the understanding that most dinosaurs had at least a partial feather cover. It was discovered that the body of the Sinosauropteryx was covered with fluffy feathers, and the tail of the Caudipteryx was also found to be adorned with very long feathers. And even on the bones of the forearm of the infamous Velociraptor were found bumps where feathers protruded. So these animals most likely looked more like bizarre, enormous birds than lizards, and not only because of their feathers. Unlike their Hollywood brethren, real velociraptors were closer to the size of modern-day turkeys. And in 2004, a tyrannosauroid was discovered with a complete 100% feather covering. It turns out that this fierce predator looks something like a bird from hell the size of a bus. But according to one of the creators of the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, Steve Brusatte, this would not make the dinosaurs look any friendlier. On the contrary, the appearance of feathers on a dinosaur, according to him, would look even more frightening than the green scales of the legendary film. By the way, how much current birds resemble their ancient ancestors has been shown to the world by a certain Moluccan cockatoo named Oscar. As a result of a rare disease, he tore out many of his own feathers and now resembles something like a tiny dinosaur. Undoubtedly, after all of these discoveries, the appearance of these ancient animals, in our view, must radically change. However, this in no way means that all of the riddles regarding the appearance of the dinosaurs have been solved. For example, fossils so far have not been able to give us a reliable answer as to the coloring of the antediluvian animals. Judging for yourself, do you think we could guess as to the presence of a zebra's stripes simply from its skeleton? Modern reptiles, especially lizards, are distinguished by a striking variety of colors and skin patterns. Perhaps the dinosaurs were the same. Bright, colorful spots or stripes could have served as identification markers for the ancient creatures, and color changes could have been a signal of danger. One day, science will probably be able to recreate an exact portrait of these ancient lizards. Or perhaps, like in the movie, dinosaurs will one day be able to be cloned. Obviously, for this, it would be necessary to have a complete genome of the animals. But so far, alas, nobody's managed to get even a single scrap of their DNA. However, with the pace of technological development, everything could change in a flash, and we would no longer have to guess as to how these animals looked. But as of now, we'll have to limit ourselves to our imaginations. Artist and paleontologist Mehmet Kozman sees the predatory Majungasaurus as looking similar to a brightly colored parrot, but without the beak and feathers. The Balaur Bondoc dinosaur is imagined as being akin to a giant raven. The 12-meter-long Plateosaurus is conjectured to be something like a giant pheasant, and the Tanystropheus, a mixture of a raptor, a swan, and a giraffe with an incredibly long neck. Wouldn't you prefer the dinosaurs to be something more like this?